So in the first video, I kind of laid a backdrop a little bit. In the second video, I did more of that. Kant is now what I'm going to really zoom in on in this video. So his project is to look at the empiricists who want to just look at the raw sense data of the world and just make claims about what you observe directly. And you have the rationalists who want to support the perfection of conceptual ideas and the perfection of math to understand the laws of nature. You kind of have these two camps, and Kant is reflecting on them. He's in his 50s. It's the 1780s. And he comes up with this really brilliant argument. And it kind of goes like this. So imagine you're outside and you're walking down the street and you look at your watch and you see the time is 3 p.m. and you say, I'm going to walk around the entire block, and I know that that's a mile. This block is a mile to walk around. And so I'm going to figure out how fast I walked based on the time it takes me to walk around the block. So let's say you get back at 3:20. You can infer a velocity from that. You know the space, the distance in space that you went through, and you know the time, the duration of time. Because you have measurements. You have a map that you measured once, so you know it's a mile around, and you have a watch which is measuring time. Now, is it possible to experience life apart from space and time? It's very difficult to imagine a world without space or time. You could imagine a world without space, perhaps. You close your eyes and you listen to music. You hear the tempo. You still have a sense of time, even when you're not moving and you have no spatial awareness. But once you open your eyes and you start to move, space becomes part of the equation again. And we really can't get around time except maybe when we're anesthetized or in an unconscious part of sleep. The persistence of time is there. And even if you go to sleep or you fall into a coma and you lose consciousness altogether for a very long time, and then you wake up again and it seems like no time has passed, your body still was in time. So is it possible to have any experience outside space and time? Kant says no, absolutely not. And so rather than treating them as things in themselves, as being denotable by concepts, space and time, as being real things, we can only know them as the sort of form of all of our intuitions. So everything that we sense, everything that we intuit in the world has to be inhered with space and time. And he calls time the inner sense. The awareness of time is the inner sense, and the awareness of space is the outer sense. And what this allows him to do is to differentiate between a concept and a real thing. Now he has a three-tiered view of what it's like to experience things in general. By this, I mean that there is a concept, there is a sense, and there is what's called a thing in itself. So let's say you are looking at this screen, you see a picture of me on the screen, you are getting, you're sensing things, you're hearing things, you're seeing things, those are your senses. And then you have concepts, and that's basically that you can identify something. It's like a file that information is put into in your brain. So that you can identify me as different from the wall behind me, and you can differentiate between the wall and the ceiling. Those are concepts. Now, you don't have to think explicitly about them for there to be conceptual thought going on. You can see that I have hair and eyebrows and eyes and skin, but we don't really have different concepts for the different parts of your skin, the different wrinkles in my forehead. But you can still identify those based on concepts like shape and light and variation, and you have basically these ways of organizing your senses that's meaningful, and then you can reflect on those and obtain abstract knowledge about it rather than perceived knowledge. Percepts, in contrast to reflections. So, but then underneath that, so you've got your concepts and your senses, which are kind of together. They're synthesized in the imagination. Your basically same functions in your brain are happening when you're asleep as when you're awake, more or less. It's the thing that tells a story about your experience. That's what your imagination is. It's not just like I'm thinking about unicorns or the Marvel action heroes. The imagination is the faculty of representation in the mind. It's taking images, senses, stories, and basically putting it all together, synthesizing it for you, the observer, the person, the subject. And so, that's kind of concepts and senses. But then there's this third thing, the noumena. So, which is the thing in itself. So he says that the senses and concepts which are synthesized together are the world of phenomena. You experience different things. All of your experiences are phenomena. Even your thoughts are phenomena in a way. They might not be real phenomena. You can imagine something that doesn't exist, but it is a phenomena in your mind, but it has no real object. So it would be a false phenomenon. Noumena are basically what we have to infer exists in some way that is very different from anything we can sense. So the reason he makes this case is that imagine if someone assumed you were just your appearance. The way you appeared to them was all you were. You would feel like that's wildly false. There's more to you. That would be oversimplification. That's kind of the intuition that's going on there. The guiding moral that Kant is using in differentiating between what you can sense and observe and extrapolate information from, and what is there in a way that we can't sense beyond being a human. So imagine if you were a bat. What would it be like to be a bat? Would the world be very different? Probably. It's not in a way that we can really project into, but it would be a different reality than what we as humans sense. You can even have different states of consciousness. You can get drunk, you can be sleepy, you can be angry, you can be hungry, you can be content, you can be happy. Reality seems a little bit different in all these different states of consciousness, and you can extrapolate true information, true observations you can make from each perspective, but it's in the composite of those that you get truer information. Each one of them brings a story together that means more and more. And so it would seem to be the case that if you took every sentient being, every organism that can sense the world, if you took all the information together, there's a reality that is bigger than the reality we experience. Even as one person or one mind, the plurality of views is going to bring together a reality that is bigger than just mine. And so that's kind of what's going on with this idea of a thing in itself, is that there's something behind the object. Here's a stapler. If I wasn't a human, the stapler would appear different, and I could see it truly, but it wouldn't be the way that I experience it as a human now. So this has a thing in itself behind it that is different in a completely unimaginable way than anything that I know. And so because time and space are embedded into the entire fabric of our life, and it's impossible to get away from them, we basically have a really strong example that the world centers around us, that we are at the center of the universe whether we like it or not. We can't get around the fact that we are humans, and that we experience the world in a certain way, and therefore absolute reality is not the same thing as apparent reality. And that's the whole basis of Kant's project.